So there you are, trapped by Hurricane Laura. It's headed your way. You're on the East Coast and you want to get west. You want to get on the other side of the hurricane. What are you going to do? I'm going to show you what I did. Hey, I'm Scott Perdue, and today on FlyWire we're going to take a look at how I got around Hurricane Laura. For one thing, I was in Savannah on business, and the hurricane hits Louisiana and then pushes up north Arkansas and then starts curving east. And the original forecast had been that it was going to be not bad on the south, Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi, etc. But in the event, actually, it was not great because I guess the hurricane kind of sagged a little bit on its northern push and started east, and there were rain bands. I mean, this thing was huge, and there were rain bands, all across everywhere, and basically cutting my path west. So what I did is instead of waiting it out and could have taken more than a day, what I did is I filed an IFR, and I headed towards a suitable airport that was in front of the rain band, and in case I had to land and couldn't find a way through, and wait it out and then have the front basically push past me, all the storms push past me, and then go on. So what I was hoping for, and I could see a little bit in the radar going when I was planning this, is there was a gap between two big sets of storms, and I thought maybe that gap would persist long enough for me to get there and then shoot the gap and then get to the west. And in the end, I'm going to show you a little bit of video of that, and in the end that's what happened. Is when I got closer, the gap was still there, and I changed my destination with ATC, and I was able to shoot the gap, and basically it was in smooth air, and I just had to dodge a couple of clouds, but it was in smooth air pretty much the whole time until I got on the back side of it, and then it got a little bumpy. But I didn't ever deal with thunderstorms or even get into the clouds at from that storm system, which is a good thing. I can fly into green, light green is okay, dark green, yeah, that's not great. Yellow, I'm not crazy about yellow, and there's no way red or purple I'm going in. Absolutely not. I'd rather be on the ground and hunkered down for that. So anyway, you're going to see that. I couldn't make it all the way home. With the tip tanks on Whiskey Bravo, I can usually go quite a long ways, but I had 30, 40 knots plus in the face the whole way home west, which is even more than normal going west. So there's the remnants of the hurricane for you. So I didn't actually deal with the bad hurricane, but here I'm going to show you what I did to shoot this gap. This is a kind of a speeded up version of what FlightAware actually had of the flight path. That's where I said, okay, I'm going to go for this gap, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot this gap. And unfortunately what the radar doesn't show on this picture is how everything moved. Everything moved considerably. So here's another view of the actual shooting the gap portion, and it's sped up, but not super fast. But you can see other people are using this gap as well. It's not a big deal. They're all really high. They're airliners, and so they're avoiding all this stuff. And you can see that it's pretty heavy stuff, and then purple and red and yellow mostly, a little bit of green. So that's definitely stuff I don't want to mess with. I'm not going to go into clouds with any of that stuff in it. So I'm going to go for this gap. And you can see there is some developing right in front of me. We'll see how it goes and whether I can get around all that stuff. And actually I did in the end, and I've got some video outside the cockpit window so you can see what it looked like out the window. It's not a huge deal. So some of these guys are going over the edge, but for me, I'm at about 10,000 feet. So I'm thinking I'm going to avoid that one at my left, 10 to 11 right now. And I'm going to cut through here looking out the window. That's the best option for me right now, instead of pressing closer to that other big system there with all the lightning there towards the west of me. So I'm going to cut over through the gap right here, and actually that turned out to be really well. And I'm just going to keep updating my destination, my new destination, and when I can go over the top of that horn on the second system right there. So you can see that. It's a pretty big system, and took a while to traverse. So anyway, that's how I'm working it, and it was basically smooth air for me right here. I didn't really run into any bumps. I didn't run into any clouds. They're all around me, but where I was at 10,000 feet, everything was just fine. So it wasn't a really big issue, and you can see how the winds are affecting my glide ring. So the winds were pretty significant. I was just checking traffic right there, how high they are and who they are. None of them are a real factor for me, besides being higher and faster. So I'm going to skirt this one spot right here. Shouldn't be a huge problem. And most of the time I've got 30 to 40 knots in the face. A couple of times I saw some 50 knot winds, which doesn't do much for my ground speed. But there you go. I'm fixing to clear it on the north side right now, and then be on course. And of course ATC is always interested in when are you going to be able to go on course, because they work with you on deviations, but this is a huge deviation, something they're really not used to seeing that, and except under extraordinary circumstances, which today in the aftermath of Laura kind of is. But there it is. So I'm going to report that in a few minutes. Wasn't smart enough to get cockpit audio on this, and hadn't actually intended to do a YouTube video, so I'm not totally prepared with other camera angles and stuff like that. Sorry about that. Just thought you might be interested in how I did this kind of real time. So there, I clear it, and I'm in the clear the whole way. We're going to see some cockpit video right now, and I'm beyond it, and it does start to get kind of bumpy here. The winds are pretty strong in the face. So here's what we're going to see another look at from the aspens, what my indicator is, and how I'm starting to shoot that gap. And this is what the gap looked like out the window. Man, it's pretty confused, lots of clouds and everything, but I see blue sky at my level, so I think I can make it through there. Fortunately, I was right, but I'm not going to go through that stuff left and right. That's some nasty looking stuff, nasty looking weather. So that's off the right wing, and that's that section of cloud that was mostly red, purple, a little bit of yellow thrown in, hardly any green at all. That's my slot right there where I'm going to go through, and that's that other small pop-up in between the gap, in the middle of the gap. There's a little pop-up storm, but I should be able to make it through, no problem. I've already shot the gap itself along with that little pop-up, and I'm just heading out for the rest of it. You can see I've got weather everywhere. I'm monitoring everything. One thing to remember about this weather that I'm looking at is the best it can be is about 5 minutes old. The best, because the radar's got to process it, and it sends it to a location where it captures all the other inputs, and then they process that, and then it sends it out to the website basically, and then weather services. In this case, it's ADSB weather service picks it up and then sends it out. So the absolute best it can be is five minutes. That's a long time. I don't have radar, so I can't negotiate any of that stuff real time. I'm not going to go in the clouds and try to negotiate that. As long as I can stay in the clear, I feel pretty good about it. But going into the clouds with that radar, I'm not really excited about it. Because all the stuff, all the weather I have, you can see it's raining a little bit right there, is history. So here I wanted to show you my fuel considerations. And my main thing was, as I'm going to ELD, I've got plenty of fuel. My destination is 50 Fox, and you can see that it actually says I can get there with 30 minutes. That's the lower right hand side. 38 minutes, 37 minutes of fuel. That's not enough gas for me. I want to have an hour, okay? Not 38 minutes, and I'm going to land early because of that, and I'm okay with that. I'm not in such a huge hurry. I'm going to press. I know what the IFR requirements are. I know what the VFR requirements are. For me, they're minimums. My minimum is an hour. So this is a look back at the gap that I shot. I'm already closing in ELD right now, and you can see that the gap's gone. Where I flew, there's no gap anymore. It's all filled in, and I wouldn't have been able to make it. And when we take a look at the whole thing, then it's all confused, but there's a lot of severe storms just about everywhere, and you can see the remnants of Laura up just north. So really, I shot the gap, and that's it. There's that gap. Well, there you have it. That's what I did, just as a kind of a lesson learned thing. It all worked out really well, but I was prepared from the very beginning to hunker down on the ground and wait for the storm to pass over me. And that's what I would recommend for anybody, is don't push through the thunderstorms. There's absolutely no reason to do that. If there are pathways through it, especially if you can stay in clear air, then you can do it. It's possible. I've done that and gone way out of my way. I've gone hundreds of miles out of my way to go around a system. And just as a kind of a brief of what I did to get through Hurricane Laura, it wasn't really a big deal, but it took a bit of planning and watching it and seeing it develop. And then at the end, you could see that it was closing in behind me. And if I hadn't shot the gap when I did, very soon afterwards, it was all socked in. I mean, there was scatter. It was not solid, but it was pretty close to solid, so much that you couldn't really fly through it, all through Georgia and everything. So I hit the gap at the right time. That was a good thing, and I made it home safe. And so good result. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. And I just thought it might be a good thing to see kind of real time dealing with Laura. And if you did, hit subscribe. I'll put this is a reminder there, but the button's actually down there. Subscriptions really help me out. And if you liked it, hit like. If you don't, well, okay, you don't like it. And if you'd like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon page. I'll put it right down below in the words. So you can come to Patreon and help me out. That really does help, and I appreciate everybody that's watching and B supporting the channel. So thanks a lot. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on FlyWire.